What do you say to yourself when you're training or competing? Are you the type that's usually picking yourself up, or are you putting yourself down? The thing is, you probably don't even realize half the time how it is that you're talking to yourself, and you probably don't know how important it is how you talk to yourself. How many of you catch yourself thinking in the middle of a set, as you're lifting the weights for one more rep, things like, man, this is hard. Man, I don't know if I'm gonna finish all the reps that I need to do in this set, or things of that nature. Guys, self-talk is so incredibly powerful. It makes such a difference to your performance on any level, in any sport, in any field, not even sports, even within your profession. Ultimately, it comes down to your own sense of self-respect, self-worth, and your thought about what it is that you're capable of. And as the saying goes, whatever you think is going to become your reality. I know it sounds like woo-woo crap, but guys, I'm telling you, this is dead on. Like, this is basic sports psychology. The types of things that you say to yourself compound. Within the only session then and there, it may not matter too much, right? That starts to have a compounding effect on your future sense of self, on your future performance. It's something that it's like depositing money into the bank account, right? If you put $1 in today, just looking at it today, it's not a lot of money, right? It's not a huge saving. But if you put $1 in every day after 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, after a lifetime, it starts to become a lot of money, right? It starts to become a significant amount of money at least. It's the same kind of thing. Whatever you say to yourself at any given moment through the day has an effect to your long-term understanding and long-term belief, long-term image of yourself. The training part is just one aspect, right? Even throughout the day, aside from training, outside of training, that is another aspect. The good example of this is, how some people tend to have a really low amount of sort of self-worth and self-esteem, but when it comes to their competition of a particular sport that they choose, so let's just say powerlifting or weightlifters or strongmen in general, they tend to smash competition. So generally they're like quiet, maybe very low in self-esteem and self-worth, very shy, reserved. They don't really believe they can achieve much. But when it comes to that particular sport, they think that they'll take on anybody, right? And they'll do well in competition. That's partially because when it comes to training in of itself, they feel very comfortable. They feel very confident in their abilities. So during training and anything to do, any self-dialogue that they have with relation to competing or training, they are saying positive things. They're saying constructive things to themselves. But outside of that, in regards to just general life, they maybe don't do that so much, right? They don't see self-worth. They don't see any capability that they might have outside of that thing. And that's part of the reason why people sometimes identify greatly with a particular sport. So you have like powerlifters who identify with being a powerlifter. And if anything goes wrong within the realm of powerlifting, they have a bad competition, they quit powerlifting, and injury forces them to stop anymore, where they can't compete anymore, they oftentimes tend to go into this downward spiral of feeling totally crap about themselves, because outside of that activity or sport, such as powerlifting, they didn't really see that they have any other skills or abilities or worth, right? When obviously that's not the case. It's just that they had figured out how to have this immense self-confidence and self-worth and value whilst competing, whilst training, whilst being around the world of powerlifting, right? But outside of that, they haven't figured out, they haven't seen that pattern of like, okay, I feel good because this is how I talk to myself, this is how I bring myself up, this is how I build myself, right? And the people around me within that sport also talk constructively to me, build me up and things like that, right? But outside of that, in other aspects of life, in their 9-to-5 job, at home with their family, around their friends, they have toxicity. toxic friends, toxic family members, toxic people at work, toxic type of work, right? That they just don't enjoy, they don't feel any good at, they don't feel like it brings, like they can't contribute to in any particular way. And so all of these things, the way you speak to yourself shapes you in the long run. And I know this is, what I'm talking about here is kind of one of those philosophical things mixed with like sports psychology and whatnot, but this is the stuff that's actually important. Knowing how to squat or bench or deadlift, like you can know all there is to know about the technique, you can have a fantastic program, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to develop an enjoyment in what you're doing. You need to be able to develop a confidence in executing, right? In doing lifting or whatever endeavor it is that you're trying to do, and be able to put it all together. And also whilst doing that, ironically, understanding that all of those things is not you. It's just something that you do. It's just part of your day-to-day activities. It is not actually, in fact, your identity. And once you realize this, you start to see a transformation in your enjoyment of the activity, of the sport, and how good you actually start doing in the sport. So from now on, just begin to talk yourself up. Be your own biggest fan, because nobody else is going to be, right? Say positive things to yourself when you're about to do a set, when you're about to do a lift in a competition, when you're about to tackle an issue head on. And when you do it, congratulate yourself. Tell yourself how well you did, right? It makes a big difference. It builds you up over time. When you do bad, don't focus on it too much. Just think to yourself, what are some things I can take away from this? What are some things I can learn from this? And then allow yourself to dwell on it for a limited period of time, and then move on. Go on to the next thing. There's bigger fish to fry. There's better things to do. And again, like I said, this does not define you anyway. So just move on from it. But just get into the habit of accentuating and magnifying the good stuff, and sort of restructuring the perspective of the bad stuff, and watch the difference it makes to your game in the long run.